What's the fastest you've seen a crowd go from excited to horrified? The station nightclub fire. Small packed club. Great White was playing with unauthorized pyrotechnics. Suddenly caught the building on fire. Emergency exits were locked and people jammed the exit door. 100 died. Thankfully didn't see it in person, but there is a YouTube video showing the whole thing. It is a very traumatic watch though, so wouldn't really watch it unless you want it imprinted strong enough in your brain so that you will always look for exits when going into a crowded area for the rest of your life. 10 years ago or so, I was watching fireworks for 4th of July with family and friends. You know how the show usually ends with a bunch of fireworks going off at once? Well, that seemed to be what was happening, so people were cheering. One of my friends suddenly gets up, turns to us and says, "Something's wrong. We need to move." I had no idea what he was talking about, but in that moment, I noticed that one of those big bull fireworks had gone oof near the ground, showing only a fraction of the bull. Literally a second later, fireworks were shot into the crowd. It's not like movies. There was no screaming or fleeing for our lives. Everyone just froze. Only 2 fireworks exploded in the crowd. At that point the fireworks were spent, and there was just a deadly silence. Only one of the fireworks hurt anyone. It was one of the ones that are small but really loud. I think a mom and her son were hurt. But even as EMTs rushed to treat them, the silence still hung over the crowd. Very slowly, people started to walk out of the park somberly. I don't know if this counts, but I'm a huge fan of 90s rock. Slipknot, Seether, Mushroom Head, etc. Anyways, I've always wanted to see Marilyn Manson in concert, and he was opening for I think one of the mentioned bands above a few years back. Anyways, he comes on and just looked horrible, kind of slurring, but whatever, I get it. So like 4 songs in he starts singing Beautiful People and mostly everyone seemed into it. Well, maybe BCHTX, and it was an outdoor venue over 100 degrees, but he just goes, "Fuck it, you'll suck," and walks off stage. Took a few seconds to register with everyone he wasn't joking, and every starts booing and cussing. I was legit excited and it just turned to garbage so quick. Edit. Thanks for the guild. When working on a kids show, a child goes missing within the first 15 minutes of the show starting. Show had an emergency stop, so the parents could plead for the child to make himself known. Nobody was allowed to leave their seats or leave the building. Whole building had to be searched. Everyone assumed the worst, but after half an hour they resumed the show, even though the kid still had not been found. 10 minutes later we got word that the kid had wandered out of the building and was found safe and sound around the corner. To make matters worse, the show was Rapunzel, you know, where the story centers around a kidnapped child. Monday Night Football, November 18th, 1985. Washington Redskins vs the New York Giants. I was pretty young at the time, so being allowed to stay up late on a weekday was a rare occasion. During one of the plays, Joe Theismann was sacked by Lawrence Taylor and Harry Carson of the Giants. The entire stadium went silent as Theismann would end up suffering a compound fracture of the tibia and fibula. What I remember most vividly is that the broadcast kept replaying it over and over again and seeing Shin snap at a 90-degree angle. It made me physically nauseous and had to walk out of the room. If I recall correctly, following the injury, broadcasting policies were changed so that constant replays like this would not be shown in the future. Edit. Surprised to see how memorable this was for others as well. As a budding Redskins fan at the time, I gained a huge amount of respect for Lawrence Taylor that day. I understand that injuries are a part of all sports. It's a level of risk that many are willing to take. It was a need to keep replaying it over and over again from every imaginable angle that made the impression. Thank you all for sharing your similar experiences. Went to see the Pokémon movie with my fellow group home residents as a treat. There were maybe 70 of us there. Most had never been to a movie theater before, so it was a pretty big deal. The house even splurged to get everyone a small soda, candy, and a portion of popcorn. This was literally the best day of most of our lives so far. We get settled in, taking up most of the theater when the credits started and the lights dimmed. We were so excited. Pokemon. The movie was about to freaking start. Opening ads start. We are silent the whole time in anticipation. Then the credits never ended, we thought, because this one ad seemed to go on forever. Some kind of a spoof of an alien movie, maybe a play on Star Trek. Credits rolled. Lights turned on. Nobody spoke. Every single face was deflated and so freaking disappointed. Someone screwed up and played Galaxy Quest instead of the brand new at the time Pokemon movie. Nobody talked the whole way back to the house, but as soon as we got there, so many kids lost it. I didn't end up seeing it until like 10 years later, and it blew mind, haha. Several years back, and my band opens up for a hardcore punk outfit from Illinois at an all-ages venue, where they have a sci-fi theme to their show. The singer dresses up as a mad scientist and the other 3 members dress up as his evil robots. They also have old television sets plugged in around the stage playing 1950s B horror movies while they play. No one including the people running the venue have ever seen these guys play before, but going off of the theme we are expecting something awesome. That is until I'm backstage putting my equipment away and notice them all pounding back shots of tequila. When it's their turn to play they are so hammered they can't even make it through one verse of a song. The singer ended up drop kicking one of the TVs into the crowd of about 200 people, which caught fire. This caused the sound guy to end their set right there, and they were banned from the venue for life. I've never seen a crowd go from happy to oh shit so fast. Darren Brown is a TV magician, illusionist, sort of like a Penn and Teller of psychics, and this show is on mob mentality. He has an audience pranker man, Chris, who has consented to be messed with for a Darren Brown show at an unknown date. There is a studio audience watching and voting on whether he gets a good prank or bad prank, with hidden cameras tracking him and Chris's friends and family luring him to certain areas where pranks can happen. The pranks start out silly, but he's the lucky customer at a shop, but he's accused of shoplifting. The pranks slowly get more and more extreme and the audience are voting the bad pranks all the time, laughing as Chris's life is slowly falling apart in one day. It ends with Chris being let out of a police car near his house and the audience have voted for a scary black van to pull up and kidnap Chris. As the van pulls up, Chris runs away and the men chase him down, but when he turns the corner a car comes and knocks Chris down. The studio goes quiet, the lights go on and Darren says nothing, letting the audience take in what happened, giving them nothing. After a while, Darren explains that this was all set up, and Chris was in on the whole thing and the audience were the ones being tested, explaining how being part of a crowd can make someone lose their morality. They were just cheering a man having his life ruined and being kidnapped, fearing for his life. I was at a 4th of July fireworks show in Fort Walton, Destin, Florida. The show was being staged from the inlet from the Gulf of Mexico to the bay. People were watching it from the other side of the inlet, the Highway 98 bridge, and from their boats on the water. The first salvo launched, but one of the shells exploded either in the launch tube or just above, and ignited the rest of the show on the ground. Some launched a little bit before exploding. What was supposed to be a 30 to 40 minute show lasted 1 to 2 minutes. As the first shells blew up, I could see the silhouette of the technicians as they ran, like a stop motion movie. The technicians were cool as hell, since none of them were looking back at the explosions. I never realized how big the bursts were until I saw them going off on the ground. Everybody was trying to get away. We were being hit by pieces of fireworks. They weren't just landing on everybody, they were hitting us. My dad started the boat, but realized we couldn't move. A lot of kids were watching the show while they floated in the water. We were yelling at the other boats to stop because of the kids in the water. Fortunately, enough people heard/listened or realized what the problem now was that they stopped and locked everybody in place. Nobody was seriously hurt or killed, only a few techs were treated for minor burns. On that day, those techs outran Usain Bolt on the beach, wearing safety gear. When I was 10, and in a restaurant in Disneyland Paris, some of the Disney characters had come to visit the restaurant and everyone was excited to see them, and they walked around the tables having pictures with people. Mickey Mouse got the most attention because he's Mickey Mouse, but then as he was walking he accidentally kicked a toddler who was crawling on the floor. Shock and silence while the child cried and Mickey tried to comfort it. The child was fine, so everyone forgot about it a few minutes later, but that was some mood whiplash. Personally, I blame the parents for allowing their child to crawl on the floor of a crowded restaurant, since that is unhygienic and potentially dangerous given that everyone was getting tunnel vision for the characters and likely would not have noticed the child in their path. Mickey certainly didn't. I was at a music festival in the UK, where US rapper Watsky was performing. He started to climb the rigging to the side of the stage and next thing he is about 40 feet up above the crowd singing and dancing. Everyone is going crazy. I remember turning to my friend and saying, he's surely not going to jump from there, is he? Because at a lot of his gigs he will do just that, albeit from a lot smaller heights. Next thing the crazy bastard leaps into the crowd with little to no warning, plummets to the concrete floor and hits a couple of people. Instantly the security and show staff shut everything down. Looked like he was dead, and he injured a couple of people, but everyone survived. The climax of the last Twilight movie is a fight scene that goes on for 10 minutes. Vampires are ripping each other's heads off, giant wolves are throwing them around like chew toys, and one by one each of Bella's friends and family die around her. You can actually hear people in the audience react as each named character dies. And none of this happened in the book, which was criticized for its lack of climax. As each minute goes on, it feels like they improved the film's story to give it a real sense of danger and excitement and payoff to the series. So shit's intense. And right as they kill the big bad evil guy, the camera fades to black, pulls out, and reveals that all of it was a vision. The last 10 minutes didn't happen. It was someone seeing a future that might happen. No one died. Just a bunch of vampires and wolves standing around staring at each other in silence. Then they all walk away, alive and well. The crowd groans. A girl up front shouts, "Are you shitting me?" Everyone sits back in their seat. No one cares about what's happening on screen anymore. Some people are laughing because someone hit the undo button on the most exciting 10 minutes of the movie. Never have I seen a theater turn on a film so quickly and so hard. So, this is gonna require some context. This was a little while ago, back while I was in high school. The school loved to bring in speakers, which in retrospect, was very kind of them, though many people thought it was a waste of time. On this particular day, the speaker was a decently famous poet, who I will not name for what I hope are obvious reasons. The talk was actually going pretty well, since she turned out to be very funny, and was cracking jokes, and going on long, entertaining tangents. It was close to the most engaged I'd seen the school. Then, she decided to go a more serious direction, suicide. She went on a several-minute tangent about how suicide is selfish, that culminated in the fabulously awful quote, "People are like, oh, my life is so hard," and then just give up. How dare they? The entire room had gone fucking silent, because there was one thing she didn't know. The school had just had a suicide that had rocked the entire community. Completely ruined the talk, and the school was apologizing for days. Edit. A bunch of people are asking me to name her, and while I agree with their anger, it doesn't feel appropriate to me. She did something awful, but given how messy internet mobs can get, I don't really want to start one. Sorry all. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.